Hey, good morning from Kansas City. Welcome to SportsBeat Live, our weekly second cup of coffee or whatever it is Sam is drinking to talk Royals with you and the folks who know them best. Please send us your questions and comments and join in the conversation. Hey, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, the University of Kansas Health System. They've been with us all year, and you'll hear from them later in the show. But for now, let's talk to Sam Mellinger, Vahe Gregorian, and Lynn Worthy is here. That's his icon, but Lynn's here. He is battling through a power outage at his home. You doing okay, Lynn?
If you can hear me, then I'm doing okay, I guess.
Then you are doing very well. Appreciate you joining us. This happened just a few minutes before the show started, so Lynn is.
The rain arrived right at showtime, and I went from sitting in a dark apartment to actually now I'm in the car so that I can make sure the phone stays charged.
Above and beyond, my friend. Above and beyond. Thanks for doing this. Well, why don't you get us started, Lynn, and talk about the only topic that is that's, or at least it's on all Royals fans' minds these days, and that is what is going on with Salvador Perez. I want to get into what he's doing, why it's happening now, how he is bucking the trend at his age and experience in baseball. But just take us through what has happened with Salvador Perez on the diamond here. The last 10 games.
Well, I think it really boils down to is, he decided that Sam didn't have enough faith in him that he was going to be able to play this well into his 30s, and so he decided to show him what's what. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. But there's a whole lot of numbers to throw at you. I think in this last month, he's had 12 home runs in the month of August, which is a team record, ties the team record. 5 straight games with a home run, that ties the team record. He was just named the Player of the Week for for American League and Major League Baseball. During the recent road trip, they had 10 games on the road. I think he hit 7 home runs during that trip. He had 14 RBIs in that trip. I think it was like 7 home runs out of 12 hits or something like that. It's been ridiculous. I'm just saying home runs, but he had back-to-back days where he had grand slams. And when you stop and think about it, he really could have had, I think he had opportunities to have 4 grand slams, which is just crazy to think that he was in those spots to have that many. But he had back-to-back days with grand slams. One of those games, I think it was the first game, he came up twice with the bases loaded. He hit one that was a fly ball to left field. And then I think he had another day, the third day in a row, I think he had a bases loaded situation. And he ended up flew out there too, or popped up there. But then later in that game, hit another home run. It's just kind of ridiculous what he's doing at that position as well, being the catcher. And he's surpassed the most home runs in the season for a player who's played 75% of the games at catcher. So Carlton Fisk had that previous mark, which was 37. Salvy's now at 38 for the season and counting. He's had 26 as a catcher, and that's the official for Elias Sports Bureau. What the record for catchers in the American League is Pudge Rodriguez, 35 as a catcher. Salvy's now at 26. And there's probably a whole bunch of other numbers, but I'll stop there.
That's good. There's a whole lot there. I think the most significant thing is, yes, it's very much an anti-Sam movement on
which we can all get on board with.
No, we kid. It has been unlike anything I've seen a player in a Royals uniform accomplish. It happens in baseball with other players occasionally. I was here for the last 4 years of George Brett, and by then those types of streaks for him were in the rearview mirror. He was still very productive over those last few years, but the 1980, the 1985, the great offensive seasons for George Brett, when he had weeks and months and an entire season of doing what Salvador Perez is doing. They were gone for him. This is freak show like. I mean, home runs in 5 consecutive games. The back-to-back grand slams, as Lynn said. He came up in the 3rd inning of the 3rd game with the bases loaded and a chance to, to add to that. So it's just I haven't seen a Royals player accomplish this, and he's helping the Royals win games. They went 7-3 on this road trip to where the Cubs, Astros, and Mariners. So Royals continue to play good baseball while Salvador Perez is playing out of his mind baseball. So Sam, he's 31 years old. He's in his 11th season, and those, I had thought that Salvador Perez had created a baseline for himself. 27 home runs, 80 RBIs, and that was the Salvador Perez season. And those are great seasons for a catcher to go along with his Gold Glove. But to now sit at 38 home runs and 94 RBIs with more than a month remaining in the season, who knows what his totals are going to end up looking like. He is certainly bucking the trend.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And first of all, I need to point out that the Royals had a player who once homered in 4 straight at-bats on both sides of a shoulder injury back in the 80s. His name was Bo Jackson. You can look him up. But with Sal, the stuff he's doing just makes no sense at all. And if you look at like some of the StatCast and like just all this information, it's hard to figure out what he's doing differently. Like he's seen more pitches per at bat, not by a bunch, but he's seen more pitches per at bat than he ever has in his career. But he is also the most aggressive hitter in baseball by both swing percentage and swing percentage on pitches outside the strike zone. So it's not like he's being super patient with any of this stuff. He gives a lot of credit to Terry Bradshaw on some of the information that they're giving him of when to expect a slider in a certain count and things like that. The only thing that I can figure out, just look at his stance, is a little bit different. He's open more and it's a big leg kick and stuff like that. But it's so much easier to just say than do, right? But he doesn't miss. If a pitcher makes a mistake, that ball's going over the fence. Anything that's just over the plate, he is crushing it. And you can make a lot of money in this game by crushing mistakes, and that's what he's doing right now. It's absolutely freaking remarkable, because this is the time of his career. As soon as he signed that first extension back in, was that before the 12 season, I think? There were people talking about, in his 30s, once he gets to that stage of his career, you might have to change positions. You don't know, like big body catcher like that, how he's going to hold up. And then that surgery, that Tommy John for a catcher, there's not a lot of catchers who have performed really, really well after having that surgery. So this is, it's absolutely remarkable. He's a freak of nature.
Hey, Vahe, I want to get your thoughts, but before we do, I've already kind of messed up the script here. Let's check out the 2 grand slams this past week by Salvador Perez, and then we'll come back.
Bases are loaded, nobody out, and the Royals' best hitter this year, Salvador Perez, will come to the plate. And the 2-0, and Salvy hits it well, deep left center, and that ball is gone! A Salvador Perez grand slam, and the Royals take the lead 5-4.
Salvador Perez going to be due up 35 home runs on the year.
One swing could tie the game. Logan Gilbert deals, and a swing and a fly ball hit deep right center field, and that ball is gone! Salvador Perez, a grand slam for a second straight game, and he ties the game 5-5.
Last night was the first time in franchise history they had a grand slam in consecutive games, and Salvy writes another chapter.
So, a month ago, Salvy's in the home run derby, and those swings and what he's been doing the last 10 days look exactly like his home run derby swings.
Yeah. I particularly enjoyed his demeanor on that first one. I mean, he just, I don't want to say he milked it, but it looked like he enjoyed the moment. Blair, I'm old enough to remember, maybe it was in Kauffman Stadium press box circa 2013 when the Royals were coming along, but they lost a game where the other team hit like 3 home runs. And I remember you commenting like the Royals never have a guy like that, something like that. And that's changed a little over the years, but who knew they had a guy like that right there then? And I do wonder, Sam, I think you could speak to this better than I can, but we've got a lot of reasons this seems apparent. But I do wonder if one of the things right in front of us is that as he's gotten older, whatever he's done to take care of his health, the questions you have of the cost benefit of that injury, right? There's some of that is in there. But I wonder how much more seriously he takes preparation now. With everything he's saying about Terry Bradshaw, not that I don't want to say he was ever a slacker. I don't mean that, but I do wonder if that's a more in-depth part of his game in the last couple of years than it was when he was 24, 25.
Yeah, it's hard to know how much of it is just a changed, like, this isn't exactly the right way to say it, but like more mature approach. And I don't mean it like to insult the way he used to do it. Guys just change. Some guys don't want information. They think it overloads them, and they, and they're thinking too much at the plate. He takes one thing that he mentioned. I talked to him for a column a couple months ago, early in the season, and he talked a lot about the cold tub.
Yeah, I remember.
And that thing is like, I forgot the number, but I mean, it's whatever the temperature is in this thing, if you look it up, there are health warnings about water that cold. Like if you're in there too long, you can get frostbite. I mean, it's just like really, but it can provide some, I don't know the medicine, it stimulates blood flow, whatever it does. And he gives a lot of credit there. I mean, it's the other thing about this, he's going to DH. I think he's 1 game away from tying the most games at DH that he's had in his career. And so Mike Matheny is helping him in that way. But Salvador Perez is also second in baseball in innings caught. So it's not like he's just, taking the easy route. I mean, he's playing every day. I think he's missed 1 game. And if he's not, most catchers, most normal humans who play catcher, if they're not catching that day, they sit on the bench and they rest, because catching is brutal, and that is not, an easy way to make a living. But when he's not catching, Salvador Perez is DHing and hitting home runs. It's absolutely. I also wonder about that contract. At the time, me and many others were, like, ooh, that's a lot of money. That's what he would have paid if he had a big season, and they're giving it to him straight ahead. And I just wonder the way he is, if that unlocks something, if he feels a little bit freer. That's armchair psychology, so it may be complete BS. It's just something I think about.
Well, one other quick thing, and I realize this is sort of, overstated and exaggerated, but when I was in St. Louis during the great home run chase, and the last week or so, it gives you that little echo of like, you can't wait to see what happens next. I'm not saying it's like that chase exactly, but there is a little bit of that. And I was really disappointed they weren't playing yesterday, just because you wanted to see like, well, what do you got now? So it's really exhilarating that way. And just one last thing to reiterate something Blair said, which is, I think it's been a little more captivating because they've been winning. I mean, I think it would feel a little more hollow, a little more empty. Obviously, they're not where they want to be, but it's a bit of momentum into the last month of the season that might make you feel a little different about what they've got coming back, depending on how this goes too.
Yeah, it gives a stretch run some life, right?
Yeah.
Well, and how about his first Grand Slam came when the Royals, I think this is right. I don't know if I have the sequence right, but one of his Grand Slams came with the Royals trailing 4-1 and the other trailing 5-1. So, I mean, not only hitting Grand Slams, but doing it in dramatic fashion, reversing the fortune of a game, which has been pretty cool. I don't think we can underestimate the Tommy John year of 2019 and how that, as he was, getting repaired, his back, his legs, just to 9 years of catching were, basically got a year off from that. And I think from a physical standpoint, his body was rejuvenated a bit from that. That's, who knows what role that's played. That, I think, along with the slight adjustments we've seen at the plate. And Lynn, let me ask you this: when Salvador Perez comes to bat tonight with Cleveland in town, are we going to hear the first MVP chants that maybe we've ever heard at Kauffman Stadium, or at least since George Brett played?
I believe there probably will be. I mean, Mike Matheny has started that campaign over the weekend, saying that he absolutely has to be in the MVP conversation. I was just listening a little while ago. I heard Brad Keller does his weekly video appearance, and he was saying that you would disservice to Salvador Perez by not including him in that conversation. I asked Salvy the other day what he thought about mentioning him as being one of those MVP candidates, and he just sort of looked at him, he said, yeah, well, why not? Not as though he felt like he wouldn't be scoring. He was like, yeah, it'd be great to have your game.
Hey, Lynn, we're losing. You're starting to fade on us. You're lost. Sorry about that. Hey, but let's do this. We've got some Salvador Perez from Sunday. Lynn was part of the conversation. Let's hear what Salvador Perez had to say after Sunday's game at Seattle. He had homered this game, but the Royals ended up losing this game 4-3.
What does it mean to you to set or tie a Royals franchise record for consecutive home runs, or consecutive games with home runs?
That's Sweeney.
Like Tyson?
Yeah, 5 games.
Yeah. That's awesome. Sweeney. Oof. Yeah, I feel great, so excited what's going on with me right now. And I always say that I like to compete and we never like to quit. And, thank God and for everything. And I just feel really good in the home plate right now.
We asked you this a lot, but did you think that one was out? It kind of looked like it was going to go foul at first.
Yes, you're right. And that one was, there was keep throwing me like opening, and my third at bat against Gonzalez. I was okay. Let me go looking foul opening for pitch, and yeah, was opening. I think it was a pretty good pitch, and I used my hand very good to try to put the barrel. Yeah, look like, but good. I stay first. So yeah, it was pretty good pitch and pretty good swing.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Hey, Salvy. First, I just wanted to ask you about Singer. How did he throw the ball today?
Great. One of the best sliders I ever catch, today. That's the one he had today. It was 88, 89 slider down in to all the lefty. He threw pretty good, just the ball to Olivar in the first inning, it's kind of knock a ball. It's kind of hard to catch that ball sometimes, especially when you go down. Look like a split finger. But yeah, after that, just one big C went running. After that, it was, domination, to the homer. And tried to go opening on that pitch. I think that ball back to the middle a little bit, and Kelly got it. But he threw pretty good today. He used changer a lot today. 2-seam and 4-seam was good today. Slider was amazing. So I feel like he threw pretty good today.
And I think Andy mentioned that you tied Sweeney, but you also tied Gordo for number of home runs all time. Is that meaningful at all?
Ale Gordo?
Fourth.
In
Royals history.
4? I tied Gordo. Wow. The greatest, you're the best man, but okay. We're gonna get you, okay? I need to see one more. Yeah, super excited, Lynn. You know me, and I'm blessed to be in this organization. To be in here and do what I do right now it's amazing. And I think the greatest gonna feel happy too. I always say he teach me how to work hard. That's a good thing happening in my career. See Alex Gordo how he like to work. And how concentration he when the season starts, when the spring training starts, try to do the same thing every day, routine. So, I appreciate him for everything he do for us in here.
And I got just one more for you, Salvy.
Come on, again?
Just one more. Mike Matheny says, people need to start talking about you as MVP. What do you think?
Oh, it's gonna be amazing, man. I think every hitting and major league want to be an MVP. That's obvious. If they're gonna talk about me, why not? It's exciting. I think to some big people say your name, you can see that on TV, made me feel happy. And they're talking about a lot of things. So I don't know what's gonna happen after the season over. So we're gonna continue to try to do my best. Try to win some game. I always say that's a more important thing. Win the game. So and we go see. We still have 30-something games, nothing. 32 games left. So we go see.
All right, that's always love listening to Salvador Perez, and he gave Lynn some grief. Not only there, but Lynn, they gave you some grief either the day before, I think, too. So it's going to be tough for anyone to beat Shohei Ohtani for the AL MVP, don't you think?
I think so. Just based off of the, having a historic season in what he's done as a pitcher, there's going to be
Hey, Lynn. Yeah, Lynn, you're cutting out again. So sorry about that. What do you got? What do you think, Sam? Shohei Ohtani's having this freaky season. We well know his numbers. Homered last night against the Yankees. Number, I think, 42 on the year. He's 4 ahead of, I think it's 42, 4 ahead of Salvy. So, if it were just a home run chase thing, you could say, well, Salvy with his defense, but the fact that Ohtani is great on the mound as well, it's hard to deny a guy the MVP.
I mean, it's like nobody has ever. I mean, it's just he's so far off the planet. Like, I mean, he may win that award unanimously. I mean, it's Ohtani, and then it's a huge gap. And there's a lot of other, there's great players in Major League Baseball, right? Like Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Correa's having a big year. Simeon is having a real good year in Toronto. I mean, there's some players that'll be in that discussion sort of down ballot. I expect Salvy to get some votes, and be in the mix somewhere. But I mean, Ohtani's got that thing locked up. It's just, it's hard to imagine he could get, and I hope this doesn't happen, but he could get hurt and miss the rest of the season. I think he'd still be the MVP. It's ridiculous what he's done.
Blair, I think if the Royals are serious about this movement, Sal needs to be out on the mound for the last month of the season. Let's see how that changes the matrix.
I think that should be a
fastball.
Yeah, that should be a Lynn-worthy question, I think, to Salvador Perez the next time they talk. Okay, let's take a break and hear from the University of Kansas Health System.
The Kansas City Royals lineup is backed up by the region's strongest team in healthcare. The University of Kansas Health System. We both suit up with one goal in mind: to win. The University of Kansas Health System, official healthcare provider of the Royals.
Okay, some other Royals news happening this past week since the last time we chatted. One of which is Jarrod Dyson no longer with the team. He was claimed off waivers by the Toronto Blue Jays, and I believe we have seen, I guess, the last of Jarrod Dyson in a Royals uniform. But Vahe, what will you remember about Dyson and his years in Kansas City?
Well, I think we'll remember the other years more, right? But
Sure.
I think that obviously was the reason he was back here, and I think he had at least a meaningful presence around the room. It's interesting, we don't see the room these days, so it's a little harder to trace things like that. But look, he was a lot of that kind of heart and soul, and the thing that I think we'll always think about is Sam has used the term this way, but I mean, he was drafted in a round that doesn't even exist anymore, the 50th round, and basically based on having the one tool, and he certainly exploited that in every way, including with his branding, says Mr. Zumbaya. So he's part of that. One of my vivid memories of him, it's standing on the dugout steps at Citi Field with Eric Hosmer holding up the trophy right after they won the World Series, and knowing he was just part of that brotherhood in every way.
I think that when the 2022 season begins for the Royals, Salvador Perez will be the final member of the 2015 team on the roster, unless they bring Danny Duffy back, right? Because I don't see Greg Holland, Wade Davis back with the Royals, and then of course Dyson gone now too. But yeah, very much a part of the great 14 and 15 teams, and served quite a purpose for those teams.
One thing that's interesting to me about Dyson is he was a good player. I'm not trying to take anything away from that, but a lot of his most memorable moments were not with a ball in play. You know what I mean? Like I think it was 2014. I forgot. They won a game. They'd either put them in a playoff spot or maybe even into first place. And he made the last out, I think, playing center field, and they did the backflip. And that became sort of a thing, right? That people latched onto. It's this thing, the motorcycle deal. There was, remember when they played was it the ALCS in 14 against the Orioles, and the Royals won. They played 2 games in Baltimore, right? The first 2 series, right. And the Royals won both of them. And Andy McCullough, was talking to Dyson. What do you expect or is the series going to come back here? Which is a total veteran beat writer, set him up question, And but Dyson was like, "No, sir, I don't, and I don't think they do either." And that quote I remember was on the ticker on ESPN. I remember one day Dyson he's had a big personality. I always thought that Lorenzo Cain was the superstar and had the ego of a minor leaguer, and Dyson was the 4th outfielder that had the ego of the superstar, and there was this day, it was a getaway day, and Dick Cagle was still on the beat. And so the duffel bags are all over the clubhouse floor, guys trying to get on the plane. And Cagle just walks up, and Cagle owns that room, and he stepped on Dyson's bag, and Dyson was threw this big kind of mock, what are you doing, Dick? Get off my and Cagle just without missing a beat, he goes, I was here before that bag. And Dyson goes, oh yeah, you original this, huh? Went on, and it was just a common thing. That's the stuff I'm going to remember about Dyson more than anything else.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him as a minor league instructor somewhere. If that's the path he wishes to go down, I can see him maybe in the Royals organization as as some kind of minor league instructor. What a great personality, and how much fun was he to cover during the 14 and 15 seasons.
Blair, this was go ahead.
No, please, Vahe, continue.
No, this was a more kind of a piercing kind of thing, but it speaks a little bit to your point about maybe the way Dayton Moore looks at him and maybe hopes that they'll be part of the organization. He on that trip to the Dominican Republic after Giordano died, Jarrod was there. And really the first memory I have of him that'll stay with me always is being in a very small room at the funeral, and him basically just slumping into Dayton's arms. And it chokes me up to this day. But it said a lot about a lot of things, I thought.
He wasn't on the team at that point, right? Hadn't they just traded him?
I think Greg. I can't swear that with Jarrod, but I'm 99%. Greg Holland was on that trip, and he was no longer with the team. I think you're right though about Jarrod too, Sam.
Yeah, there was also a moment you bring up Dayton that makes me think of. I forgot exactly what Dayton said, but he sort of awkwardly he said something that he didn't mean in those exact words, and I forgot that the insinuation was that Dyson had like some really serious issues or something. That's the perception that Dayton's words allowed. And he didn't mean it that way, but that's sort of how it came out. And I think Dyson was with Arizona at the time, and some reporters there got to Dyson, right? And they're like, hey, what do you think about this? And it was one of those things where he had every right to be offended. And I think a lot of guys may have been in that moment. And Dyson said something like, I know where his heart is, or I know what his heart is about. And he didn't mean it that way. I know it. And that was before, at least in my recollection, before ever talking to Dayton about it. And so, I don't know. I think that there was just my point here is that there was a real connection that Dyson felt, not just with Dayton, but, with Rusty, and they had their run-ins, but, with Rusty, outfield coach, and, him and Lorenzo Cain, him and Eric Hosmer. I mean, there are just some real bonds there that it's not like they never happen. They only happen in Kansas City or whatever, but there were some real bonds there that I think carried the day throughout a lot of the Royals' best moments.
The type of bonds you see reflected in championship teams, for sure. So, okay, guys, great recollections and terrific conversation. We'll end it here. I want to thank Vahe Gregorian and Sam Mellinger for joining us, and especially to Lynn Worthy for making the adjustment, calling the audible, sitting in his car, battling the bars and the rain and everything else. Lynn, thanks for the effort today, and to Beth Welsh, our producer. Thanks to the University of Kansas Health System. And we'll be back next Tuesday talking Royals, 10 a.m. Join us, please. We'll talk to you then.